Pull a meal, and a day ain't even have the goddamn bill on your bill.
Hello and welcome everybody to Factual Opinions, the only place to get the correct opinion on the state of video games. And today we are taking a look at the next installment in the long-running Dynasty Warriors franchise, Dynasty Warriors 9. This has been a very interesting game to tackle. After delving deep into the history of the franchise in my Muso Evolution series and playing all of these games in and out for the past several weeks, I find myself at odds when it comes to playing 9, seeing up close how much has stayed the same, while at the same time how much they have completely gutted in this brand new iteration. Dynasty Warriors 9 moves the franchise into the open world genre in big ways. And by big, I mean that literally, as they have created an environment that is utterly massive. A digital China that blows away the closed-off level structure of the earlier games and has landmarks, rivers, mountain passes, and bases so massive they could fit most of the previous game's entire levels into them. Even on a good horse, traveling from point to point can be quite the journey, and the game features a fast travel system for those who want to get right into the action and start fighting right away. The problem with the open world, as ambitious as it is that open world problems and jank from the genre now come with it. It feels like they have a cart before the horse situation. Yes, they have managed to completely revamp the very structure of a Warriors title in a massive way, but all the hills, landmarks, and massive forts don't amount to much without something meaningful to fill them. It features the suite of features you would expect from an open world: side activities, fetch quests, hunting, looking for crafting materials, even fishing make an appearance. The game even opens up later and allows you to have a home that can be decorated and lets other officers visit you in very stylish formal wear. Nothing here is exceptional by any means. It's all very light, very fluffy, and it feels very much like a first attempt at tackling the very difficult job of filling a big world with meaningful content inside of it. Long stretches of roads and fields will be mostly absent of a lot of enemy forces. Sometimes even massive enemy bases won't have a lot of enemies outside of them. It can all add up to a very pretty and huge world feeling very barren and soulless. Despite the game's impressive animation overhaul, riding horseback through some of the more interesting terrain can lead to comical moments with the lackluster horse animation and poor movement options when on any terrain other than a flat road gets a bit dicey.
Drift? What do you mean, drift?
A lot of these things were fears that fans of the series were worried about, and honestly, to the average gamer who has been so inundated with open world games, the efforts here don't match up at all to the leaders in the genre. This is not Witcher or Assassin's Creed. That's just not what this game has. Despite all of these caveats, I actually don't think this spells doom and gloom in a major way for this game at all. In fact, when you think of the 1 vs 1000 mentality the Warriors games have adapted, after many hours in this game, I was actually relieved the world is designed the way it is. Crafting materials, for example, every open world game has them, and usually has animations to go alongside them that slow the action way down. At first, what seems like a very simplistic open world design flaw actually turns around to benefit the game. Being able to stay on horseback and just run through fields of pickups may seem shallow, and it is, but if the alternative was a really well crafted and incredible mo-capped animation of slowly bending down to harvest a plant or chop a tree, grab some pickaxes and start cracking some rocks open, or skinning animals that you hunted, it would get annoying and bog you down so fast in such a short amount of time for a game that is so dense and full of things to do. I grew to actually appreciate and really get into the speed and moments of downtime that side content offers. It helps the game maintain a good balance of small camp skirmishes, side quests and hunts, to all-out base infiltration and wars with hundreds of units all on the screen at once. The world and how it's designed actually evokes another Omega Force game, but not a Warriors title. they had a European spin-off called Bladestorm. This map feels very similar with a node system where you can pull the camera way out and you can see nodes all over and who is in control of various camps, bases, and cities. While you're doing your thing, the map will periodically open up to show you different forces moving and capturing and forts and stuff like that, all in real time. It adds a sense of life to the world, and it seems like a very exciting map that's ripe for an Empire's expansion to really take advantage of how open and connected it all is. The open world structure, though, isn't the only major change to the formula. The story itself is a pretty big departure in terms of how you go about playing through it and the method of unlocking characters. The entire story is chapter based. At first you only have a choice between the three main leaders, Liu Bei, Cao Cao, and Sun Jian. Staring at the infamous Yellow Turban Rebellion, every chapter takes place in the open world and features one very high level main quest that will move the timeline forward upon its completion. The difficulty of these missions is usually much higher than your character's level, but they balance the structure in the open world by providing side quests that will lower the difficulty of the main quest upon completion. However, the structure is truly open, and the game will not stop you from going right to the main objective and trying your hand at it despite being underleveled. When the timeline moves forward, more and more characters will unlock and become playable. The best part is each individual character has their own story mode. The timeline, being chapter based, works wonders as it fits a roster this large in a very elegant fashion. Using somebody like Dong Zhuo is going to be a much shorter story than using somebody like Cao Cao. In that regards, it follows history and the novels in a really smart way that makes using each character a blast and feel very unique in terms of the events and moments that they are a part of. If you like a character who may not make it all the way to the end, Lu Bu, then completing story mode unlocks a free mode where you can pick any character you like, drop them into any timeline, and roam the world to your heart's content. The way the story is set up alongside the massive scope of China and the way they weave in and out together is top notch. Normally a game with 90 playable characters and based on history can seem daunting, but the quest structure, chapter-based unlock method make playing the story very satisfying. Every chapter you complete is fun to see who you're going to get next, what time period is going to happen, and which kingdom you'll be able to use as you progress in the story. Also, credit must be given for allowing you to play how you like. I've been playing on hard and chaos difficulty, and I went right up to Hulao Gate without doing any side quests to make it easier. I fought with Guan Yu to take that damn gate and battle against Lu Bu for almost 3.5 hours. It was very hard. I nearly died about 20 times, but in the end I pulled off the victory, and it was so satisfying and fun that I was able to do that. Most games lately are more into telling you what you can't do, so it's refreshing to see Dynasty Warriors of all games allow you the creative and narrative freedom to tackle the story how you like it. To me, that's what an open world game should actually provide, and that freedom makes it easy to look past the very obvious shortcomings in its presentation. Speaking of presentation, Dynasty Warriors 9 has some pretty big leaps in that regard. First of all, the entire UI and HUD have been cleaned up big time. Gone are the huge and gaudy life bars and map, replaced in favor with a much more minimalist look that cleans up the screen nicely and allows you to see the action much more clearly than you ever could before. They also finally let you customize the HUD, and outside of your own health and Muso bars, you can opt to hide every other on-screen element. The presentation goes beyond that even, featuring a new engine to support the massive scope of its world. Now, some elements of the open world can look very bland, barren, and sometimes textures can make it seem like your PS2 was resurrected and put inside your game, but most of the stuff you interact with thankfully avoids that problem. The characters themselves look incredible. Every character has been remodeled and almost all of the animations were built from scratch. Castles won't be confused for bases anymore, with some small camps being very tiny and wooden, while major forts seem like they stretch forever in all directions. The major story scenes, of which the game has over 150 of, are also just as good. They feature a major step up from the previous games. Some major events actually have really excellent action scenes and pretty awesome shots and decent cinematography that I never knew I even needed in the Dynasty Warriors game. It really helps make some of the more infamous moments of the Three Kingdoms drama feel very big and important. Sometimes even small character moments such as two characters talking at a dinner table at night. It really shines due to the increased effort and fidelity for these sequences. It also helps that Koei Tecmo and Omega Force finally made the game international all the way, offering the Chinese, Japanese, and English dub for anyone who wants them. Playing Dynasty Warriors in its native language has been a treat. Sure, the voiceover of the previous games were very campy and led to some unintentional hilarious memes like, "It's Lu Boo!" But playing it with the Chinese dub has immersed me in a way the English dub just couldn't match. Not everything is well with the upgraded visuals. The game can struggle to keep a steady frame rate, and that is very unfortunate. Now, fans of the series will note that many of the previous games also featured lots of slowdown. Fire attacks, anybody? Old school fans will know what I'm talking about. But even knowing that, it's still a problem. The PS4 Pro and the Xbox X feature a movie mode and an action mode. Action mode tries to go for a 60 FPS, but it has severe drops and screen tearing issues everywhere. Movie mode fares much better, and on both consoles is what I would recommend. The frame rate sticks close to the 30 FPS, it gets rid of almost all the screen tearing, and when it drops, it's not as bad as going from 60 to sub 20 in action mode. They have already announced the patch is coming to offer a locked frame rate, but it is a problem in the game right now and it cannot be ignored. PC copies weren't available at the time of this review, so I will be eager to see how that platform holds up. Hopefully it's better than Koei Tecmo's previous PC ports, because the track record there isn't stellar by a long shot. So, after all of that discourse, the only thing left to talk about is kind of the most important thing, the gameplay itself. Thankfully, this is the part where the game shines brightest. The improved visuals, animations, open world, and its structure would be nothing if the actual game underneath it didn't hold up. The core combat has never been smoother, and they have ditched the standard square, triangle attack formula for a new format. Now, square is always what is called a flow combo. Holding R1 makes all four face buttons a modifier for what is called a trigger attack. They are a launcher, a special move that has a long cooldown and is unique to every character, a ground takedown, or a stun attack. Each trigger attack can be charged, which provides you with hyper armor and allows the attacks to guard break even high level enemies. And after each trigger attack lands, you can use the flow combo to extend each attack, and then you can flow, hence the name, into other trigger attacks and maintain the combo. All of it looks and feels very satisfying, and very small but smart changes such as the character's auto jumping for launchers, and air dashes that automatically pursue enemies that get knocked too far away clean up a lot of the little frustrations that you would have from the combo system, especially when you're trying to juggle enemies in the previous games. Not all 90 characters have unique weapons, however, but the combat system itself features unique animations for most of the EX, flow attacks, and Muso attacks. So even though Ma Chao and Zhao Yun both use a spear, the way they fight with the spear can be very different from each other. The enemies can and will use all of these same moves against you, and even with the standard soldiers sitting there waiting to die, enemy captains and named generals can provide a much steeper challenge. They are aggressive, and because of the speed of combat, they can chase you down in a way that they never could before. The back and forth fights on the harder settings are some of the most intense fights I have ever had playing a Warriors game. I've died more times in my playtime with 9 than I have with the previous 8 installments combined. Despite the slowdown and the big battles, I'm still having a ton of fun just fighting enemies in this game. And Dynasty Warriors 9 couldn't be described in that way. Despite this one or two major issues, I'm still having fun. Despite the open world problems and the issues it suffers in the transition, despite the poor performance in a lot of instances, the simplicity of its side quests, shops, and crafting systems, despite all of these things, I play this game and I look at the time and 3 or 4 hours flew by and I didn't notice. I'm always looking for a next gem upgrade, the next major cutscene, or the next major story chapter to see who else I can unlock and use. The base that this game has laid down is strong, and it has major promise to it despite the very obvious and huge flaws. But instead of pushing me away, it makes me excited to see them grow and see how it's going to change in the future. Smart changes to the story layout, the combat systems, all combined with small touches like a full gallery for replaying cutscenes, the customizable HUD, and the Chinese dub. Those things overshadow the problems that also get introduced in this new iteration. Not all of these problems can be ignored, and even as somebody who's a diehard Warriors fan, I have sat here and shook my head at some of this game's obvious problems, and I can only assume the casual media will slam it for everything I mentioned. But if you can get past all of the obvious problems the game has, underneath is something really great, and I feel like it is a major jump forward for the franchise. Now, I am not blind to the problems the game has, and I tried to be fair in showcasing them. But the amount of fun I've had can't be diminished by all of these issues. And trust me, I banged my head against them. I was sitting here writing notes as I'm playing the game, and I'm like, this is messed up, this isn't working great, this seems very basic. But despite all those notes, despite all the times I banged my head against the frame rate, or cursed out my horse because he couldn't climb a mountain, it didn't match up to the amount of fun I was having scaling enemy walls, tackling the captains, seeing the next major storyline. It's been a blast. If you are a fan of this series, if you've had an inkling of interest, I absolutely recommend it. And if you're just looking for a gigantic content-filled action game, this is also a great one to pick up. 4 out of 5, that's my factual opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I feel like, yes, they made the transition, and it definitely takes its lumps, but everything about the core gameplay and how it interacts with that open world make it shine through. 4 out of 5, thanks for watching. Let's hit 1,000 subscribers. Please share it, like, comment down below, and I'll see all of you guys next time on Factual Opinions. Later, everybody.